Hi love, welcome back. In today's class we're making those beautiful shirts. If you are new to the channel, my name is Miss Ai and you're welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you my love, thank you darling, thank you sweetheart for always coming back. We've created this pattern in a skirt and dress form. If you haven't watched those videos, please go and do so you'll be able to understand and make this pattern correctly. Let's get right into class. I'll be using the scrap yarns in this shade and a 4.0 mm hook. To begin with, we are going to start off with a slip knot and we are going to make a multiples of 19. So I'm going to chain 152. And this fits a size medium to large. If you are making a size small, consider chaining down, so take 19 off. And if you are making for a size extra large or a large wide, consider adding 19. Just keep making a multiples of 19 until your desired fit. After my 152 chains, you're going to slip stitch inside the first stitch to form a circle. Make sure your circle is not turned, make sure it's straight. Row 1, we are going to chain 4. Chain 4 count as our first treble crochet. We are going to make a treble crochet inside the same stitch. So this is 2. And we are going to go ahead and add 3, making it 5 trebles inside the same stitch. So this is 3, 4, and 5. After our 5 cluster treble, we are going to make 1 treble inside the next stitch. We are going to skip 1 stitch and make a treble in the next stitch. So the 1 treble counts as our first individual treble. We are going to skip a stitch and make our 3rd treble. And we are going to keep doing this until we have 9 individual trebles. So you skip a stitch, make a treble in the next, skip a stitch, make a treble in the next until you have 9 individual trebles. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So after the 9 individual treble, we are going to make a cluster. So in the next stitch, we are going to make 5 trebles. So the 5 trebles is a cluster. So cluster of trebles. So this is 1, 2, in the same stitch, 3, 4, and 5. In the next stitch, we are going to repeat 5 our cluster, so 5 trebles in the same stitch. So we are going to place 1, 2 inside the same stitch, 3 inside the same stitch, 4, and 5. In total, you should have 10 clusters in the 2 stitches. So you should have something like this. Now we are going to start making our individual trebles again. So inside the very next stitch, we are going to place our first individual treble, that is 1. And now moving on, we are going to be skipping 1 and place our second treble, individual treble, skip 1, put our third individual treble, and we are going to repeat this until we have 9 individual trebles. After our 9 individual trebles, inside the very next stitch, we are going to place our clusters again. So the cluster is 5 treble crochets inside the same stitch. So this is 4 and 5. Inside the next stitch, we are going to place 5 trebles inside the same stitch. We are going to make a cluster. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now we are going to be repeating this until the end of the row. So now you are going to make your individual trebles, 9 individual trebles, cluster until the end. So I'm at the end of the row, and we are going to place our last cluster. So you should be left with a chain, 2 stitches. So inside the last stitch, I think when I slip stitch, my yarn pulled, so that's why you are seeing it like that. It's a stitch. So you are going to place your 5 trebles. This is 3, 4, and 5, all inside the last stitch. And now we are going to slip stitch on top of the chain 4. There you go. So this is row 1. Row 2, you are going to chain 1, turn your work, and we are going to place front loop single crochet in each stitch. So the chain 4 stitch is your first, so don't forget, place your first front loop single crochet inside your chain 4 space. Go ahead and place front loop single crochet inside each stitch or inside each treble until the end of the row. So that's front loop single crochet. You're going to go all around until the end. At the end of the row, you're going to slip stitch inside the chain 1 space. There you go. Row 2, you are going to chain 4 again, and this chain 4 counts as your first treble. You are going to turn your work. This is where a lot of people say their clusters is not aligning. So your first treble is going to go inside where the chain 4 you made your chain 4. You are not skipping. So place your cluster. So the chain 4 counts as your first treble. So you're going to go ahead and place 4 more trebles inside the same stitch, making it 5 trebles. And the 5 trebles is your first cluster. So we have 2, 3, 4, and 5. We are going to start making our individual trebles, and the first one goes inside the very next stitch. So place your first individual treble, that is 1. You are going to skip a stitch, and in the next stitch you place your second individual treble, so that is 2. Skip a stitch, place your third one, and we are going to keep repeating this until we have 9 individual treble. So this is 3, 4, 5, and keep repeating this until you have 9 individual trebles. After our 9 individual treble, inside the very next stitch, we are going to place our cluster. So that is 5 trebles in the same stitch. So this is 2, 3, 4, and 5. In the next stitch, you are going to place a cluster again. So that's 5 individual five trebles inside the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. After your cluster, you are going to make your 9 individual, and you keep repeating this until the end. At the end of the row, you are going to make your last 5 clusters. So 5 plus the beginning 5 will make your 10. So now you are going to slip stitch on top of the chain 4 space, and you should be having something like this. So you're going to chain 1, turn your work. So row 4 is front post single crochet, and the very first one would be in your chain 4 space, and you're going to go ahead and place front post single crochet in each stitch until the end. So you can see I'm just connecting my yarn with no formula. If you have a mixed yarn, that works perfect. If you don't have a mixed yarn, just alternate your color as you desire. So go ahead and make front post single crochet in each stitch until the end of the row, and at the end of the row we are going to slip stitch on top of our chain 1 space. So slip stitch, and now we are going to keep alternating between row 1 and 2 until we have 9 inches. So row 5, you are going to chain 4, turn your work. Henceforth, all the even rows are going to be the same, and all the odd rows are going to be the same. So the odd rows is our treble crochet rows, and the even rows is our front post single crochet rows, and we are going to keep repeating this until we have 9 inches. But if you are making for a size extra large, consider making 10 inches if you want the waist to be a little high. So I'll go ahead and walk you through a few rows again, and I'll go off camera, make my 9 inches, and I'll meet you when I have my 9 inches. So I'm going to keep alternating the colors. So from the darker shade to the lighter shade, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You can equally work this with a single yarn. You don't have to change colors if you don't want to. So I'll meet you when I have 9 inches and we shall continue. This is my 9 inches completed, and this is what my work is looking like. And now we are going to divide the work into 2 and start working our clutch area. So this is what your work should be looking like, and You're going to divide it into two. Make sure you align your panels well and you count stitches and divide your work into two. So now as you've divided your work into two, we are going to chain 21 for the clutch area. This again doesn't matter the size you are doing. It applies to all sizes. So chain 21. And we are going to slip stitch at the very opposite, so I can eyeball it. That's why my stitch marker is not there, but if you can't, please place a stitch marker when you divide your work into two. Now you're going to chain one, cut and fasten your yarn. This is the mistake I did. So I was going to change yarn. So if you know you are going to change yarn, just make your clutch the chain 21, make it in the color you are going to change your yarn to. Make a slip knot and attach your yarn where you want to be the back side of your shawls. So inside the very first stitch, and you are going to chain 4 count as your first treble, and inside the same stitch you are going to put 4 more trebles, making it 5. So after that you are going to make your individual trebles until you get to the cluster. So this is 2, 3, 4 and 5. The pattern has not changed. The only thing that we are doing is now we are going to work our first leg before we move to the second. So after our cluster, we are going to start with our individual treble. So inside the next stitch, you are going to place your first individual treble, skip 1, make your second, skip 1, make your third, and you are going to keep making this until you get to your 9, or you have 9 individual trebles. After your 9 individual trebles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we are going to start making our cluster again. So in the very next stitch, you are going to make 5 trebles inside the same stitch. In the next stitch, you are going to make 5 trebles inside the same stitch. So that is our second cluster. And after our second cluster, we are going to keep repeating the individual trebles and cluster until we get to where the chain space, until we get to the beginning of our chain space. So keep making your trebles, individual trebles and cluster until you get to the beginning of the chain space. So at the beginning, the last stitch before we move to the chain space, you're going to make your cluster, and the cluster is 5 trebles inside the same stitch. Inside the first stitch of our chain, we are going to make our second cluster. That is 5 trebles inside the same stitch. After our 5 trebles in the beginning of our our chain space. Now we are going to make our 9 individual trebles, and the first individual treble we are going to place it in the very next stitch. And moving on, we are going to skip 1 inside the next stitch. We make our second treble, skip 1 in the next stitch, you make your third treble, and you're going to repeat this until you have 9 individual trebles. After your 9 individual trebles, you should be left with 2 stitches, and inside the very last stitch you are going to make your 5 treble inside the same stitch. So that is your cluster. So remember, the beginning we made our 5, so in the last stitch of our chain space we make the 5 trebles to complete it. So make your 5 trebles inside the same stitch, that is your cluster, and after you slip stitch. So that is row 1 of your leg. You are going to chain 1, and this is what your work should be looking like. Now you are going to turn your work, and row 2 of our leg you are going to make your single crochet, front post single crochet in each stitch until the end of the row. So the pattern remains the same. So you are going to work until the end of the row. At the end of the row you are going to slip stitch, chain 4 for row 3, turn your work, and inside the same chain 4 space, chain 4 count as your first treble. So you are going to place 4 more trebles inside the same stitch, making it 5. After your cluster, we are going to make our 9 individual trebles. So in the very next stitch, you are going to place your first treble, skip 1, place your second, and you are going to do this, keep repeating this until the end of the row. After row 1, your work should be very clear. We are just going in circle as we did before. So work your 9 individual trebles, and work your cluster, and the cluster is 2 times, so 5 in one stage, 5 in the next stage, and you're going to keep doing this until you have your desired length for your shorts. If you want it long, go ahead and keep repeating this, go in rounds as we did for the upper part of the shorts, and if you want it shorter, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to go ahead and make 6 rows for the shorts, and I'll meet you when I have my 6 rows. Also, I'll walk you through how to make the second leg, the beginning, so it will be very clear. If you've made it up until this point of the video, my love, my darling, please leave us a heart sign under the comment section. We would so love to see that. So inside, I'm doing the last cluster before I slip stitch. And at the end of the row, you are going to slip stitch on top of your chain 4 space. You are going to chain 1 and go ahead making your single crochet front post single crochet in each stitch until the end of the row. Go around with your single crochet back post only until the end of the row, and at the end you are going to chain, cut and fasten your yarn. I'm still deciding whether to continue the legs or not. Let's start with the second leg. You are going to make a slip knot, and again just where you connected your first at the back of your work, in the first chain space, the very first chain space, you are going to make your cluster. So chain 4, connect your yarn, chain 4, count as your first treble, and you are going to place 4 more trebles inside the same stitch, making it 5. And the last one. After your 5 trebles, we are going to start making our individual trebles. So in the very next stitch, you are going to place your first individual treble, and you are going to skip a stitch, place your next individual treble, your second, skip, make your third. So this is why I said make the chain in the color you are starting with, so you can see it's so obvious. The chain I made, the middle is not looking good to me, so don't repeat this. So go ahead and make your 9 individual trebles. At this point you can even mirror, just place your individual trebles at the tip of the other one, so just mirror it and work all your 9 individual treble. So in the very first stitch where you made your cluster, so go ahead and make your 5 trebles in the same stitch. So you would see that cluster space would be a bit wider, so go ahead in the same stitch, make your cluster. And that is your 5 trebles. So you should be having something like this. And now in the next stitch, that is the main work, you are going to start making your second cluster, and you are going to go, so you can see in the very first stitch, you are going to make your second cluster. 3, 4 and 5. Now you're going to make your individual clusters, individual trebles and cluster, individual trebles and cluster until the length you want. So from this point going on is the same stitch, just follow the same exact thing we've been doing from the beginning, and your work should take a form. So go ahead, if you want to make your shorts longer, go ahead and work more rows. If you want it shorter, go ahead and just make to your desired length. So at the end of the row, you are going to make your last cluster to connect to the very first cluster you made, so it would be complete. So this is 3, 4 and 5. 2, 3, 4. So it's 5, and you are going to connect it at the top of your chain 4 space, and you're going to go ahead and work until your desired length. And for the waist, you can go ahead and make a very long chain and connect to your waist for adjustment. If you want to do that, you can go ahead and do. If you don't, then that will be the end of your work. When you are done, don't forget to cut all loose ends and make sure your work is neat. And I'll just go ahead. I don't know how many rows I'm going to make, but I'll put it on the mannequin so you see exactly what I did, if I added rows or not. Until we meet next, it's bye-bye. But also I would love to see you recreate this in your own style, in different style, the length. I just want to see how it will look. Until we meet next week in class, my love, my darling, my baby, my sweetheart, thank you so much for coming to class this week. I can't wait to see you in our next class. Until we meet next week, I've been saying bye-bye for the longest. Now let's see how it looks on the mannequin. Bye-bye.